it's science versus God. So how does this go hand in hand? Because science and God are not friends, because it's been from years we have seen they do not go hand in hand.
Right.
Science do not accept that there is presence of God. So how are we talking about two things here? Because, as I said, you're talking about God, enlightenment and divine blessing. And then on the other hand, you're talking about science and labs and experiments also.
Right. Well, the biggest thing with that is, at one point in time, they weren't always separate. Years ago, back with the origin of religion, origin of culture and society, they were together. They were one thing. But over time, we saw a huge divide in religion and science. And the main reason for that, especially it happened at the time of Galileo with the, telescope and all of that.
Okay.
But what we really found is that when these two started to work separately, right, science was able to advance a lot of things within society. Science was able to advance, like our agriculture. It was able to advance our medicine. It was able to give us like air conditioners, technology, all the things that we use and are very comfortable with. It was able to solve a lot of problems and provide us with a lot of comforts in life and help advance humanity, greatly. So we started to rely greatly on science. And religion was unable to produce the same for people. It was unable to give the same kind of fast and huge, productive outcome in the same way science could. And when science, saw religion, it basically, challenged religion. Science was saying, because there was, incongruencies between what science identified and recognized about the world and what religion said. And so religion, not wanting to, lose its control, right? Instead, what it did is it just said, well, you have to have faith, right? You have to believe, then these things work. And science was like, well, you don't have to have faith in gravity. For gravity to work, it's an objective thing. It should be empirical. It should be measurable. Same concept with religion. It wanted to apply the same to religion. Religion was not able to meet it in the same arena in terms of empirical data. So religion failed in that aspect. And as a result of that, because religion could not produce enough, did not deliver enough outcome, we left religion. You see, like, I believe even the younger generation, if you look at the statistics now, especially in America, I don't know about India, but in America, whereas the older generation, they're still majority, like I think it was over 60 or 70% of people still are part of religion. I think it's even higher than that. Now with the youth,
it's the same in India.
50%. It's the greatest number of people that are not involved in religion at any other point in time in history. So you see more people are leaving religion than ever before because they trust science, right? Now, unfortunately, science, with religion's inability to demonstrate how God interacts with the world, how God, applies, how God works, right? Religion is missing that vital part of life. Religion says God is omniscient. How do you take that and put it in a laboratory? How can you prove that? Religion says these rituals and practices can enhance your fate and fortune and transform your destiny, but again, unable to take it and put it in the laboratory. So everybody relies on science. They'd rather rely on science's antibiotics for a bacterial infection than a prayer from a pastor or minister at a church, right? There's a certain choice we make when we make between the two of them. We rely on one more than the other, unfortunately. And I don't believe that they should be separate, because I feel like what's happened now with science is that because of science's new paradigm of understanding that the world is materialistic and the world is chemically oriented, right? Chemical and mechanical, all of those things, and it has excluded the nature, the operating nature of divine and consciousness. We have some theories about consciousness being fundamental, but again, unable to prove it, right? So it's not a mainstream science. It's quantum physics. It's a side science, right? So we're talking about something that has been excluded from the modern narrative of human nature.
Okay.
So when you exclude that, you're excluding a vital part of our lives that makes life happen, that gives us life. It's the source of all life. We are all expressions of consciousness. And it's the one thing that when you evolve, it gets rid of all of your problems. It's the one solution for all of our problems. So you see, when you reach certain limits, right, with mechanical and chemical processes, it's the same reason why you reach limits in meditation and prayer and all those other things. You're working within a certain spectrum, and the moment you reach a limit, you can't go beyond that. Right. So in the same way, science has found a limit in its ability to address, bacteria, right? We found that within, a few years, we already have several strains of bacteria that don't respond to antibiotics. You get that bacteria, you're gone, right? The likelihood of you surviving that high mortality rates because we have nothing to treat it anymore. We have no antibiotics for that. And then the amount of superbugs are growing, they're increasing.
Okay.
Right? Simply by raising consciousness, we've been able to make antibiotic resistant drugs finally respond to antibiotics again.
Yeah.
Right? We've been able to change non-living materials where science says that, we see our huge advancements in our technology and huge advancements with AI, right? There's this huge drive. There's a race now. There's a battle, a new kind of war that we're fighting, and it's in technology. And it's like one nation versus another, one company versus another, right? After OpenAI released ChatGPT, we see all these other chatbots suddenly starting to come to life and all these other AIs. They were already being created, but now the rush is there to like really deliver something and then, accrue and grow and produce more. And unfortunately, we have limitations with our rare earth materials and our technology, the materials we have that can help us process data fast, that can help, when you process data fast, like silicon, certain things have issues with heat distribution, right? So if you can somehow change the structure of the material, you can enhance and improve processing speeds, improve efficiency, create more technological advancements that you couldn't before. We're able to create new materials with these blessings. We're able to alter the atomic and molecular structure of non-living materials that changes the physical constants, that makes them better for solar use, for technology, for computing. All these things can advance our technology where science and technology have found limits. Same thing with our agriculture, where they've reached limits, right? We're at the risk of losing crops in our world. Our environment, our soil, our health is so toxic now because the amount of chemicals that they use on these crops, it's insane, right? We have 800% more nitrogen fertilizer usage now than we did in the late 1950s or 60s, right? We're using twice as many toxic chemicals now than at any other point in time in history, right? We're not reducing our usage in toxic chemicals, even with this talk of healthy food and organic food and, pristine and all these other, conversations we're having about producing better quality and we're eating more. And I don't know if you've heard this information in India where it's like even those who can afford, right? Those who have better, financial freedom, who can afford fruits and vegetables, who can afford healthier diets, you see cancer rates increasing in those people more than other populations. Why? Because of the toxic chemicals in that food, right? And then there's the issues women face with their menstrual health, with, PCOS and endometriosis and all these other inflammatory-based conditions. More people with allergies and food sensitivities. Where is all this coming from? Why are we allergic to so many fruits and vegetables? Why can't we eat them? Why can't our bodies metabolize them anymore, right? All of this, we've reached a breaking point with our worldwide systems and our ability to address these problems, provide solutions, and advance further. In the same way, you see the mental health pandemic. This is truly pandemic proportions. We're spending trillions of dollars of our economy worldwide to treat mental health disorders. So we're not, ignoring them. We're treating them. Trillions of dollars. More than 1 billion of our entire population has a mental health problem, a diagnosable one anyway. And then on top of that, and those are only people part of the census. We have outliers who aren't even involved in the census. And then you also have, issues when you see mental health crisis, right? The stigma, we're talking about it more. People are getting therapy. People are trying drugs. In India, it's a big topic now. A lot of people are sharing about it, talking about their stories, all these different things. So we're addressing it now more than at any other time in history. And yet we see a weird problem happening where the number of mental health problems are rapidly rising instead of decreasing, right? And on top of that, what do you have? So with all of this distrust happening, because we see failure and suffering, no answers, no solutions, people are losing trust with science and medicine. You've seen that. People are questioning whether they should get vaccinated or not. People are questioning whether they should,
That was one big question
right?
all of us had, that should we get vaccinated or not?
Exactly. People have lost trust in science and medicine. And because even, those who get vaccinated, they're like, is this actually good for my health? They're starting to notice holes in the issues and the narrative that science has with human health, right, and well-being. And so we've identified these problems now. It's in our awareness. It's in our consciousness. So you see more people leaving science, leaving their trust of the establishment, trying more natural approaches, more holistic, more healthy. And then you're seeing this booming of the wellness industry, multi-trillion-dollar industry. It's more profitable than the pharmaceutical industry. More profitable. We complain the pharmaceutical industry is greedy and they want our money. Wellness industry wants your money far more. And unfortunately, women are the major, consumers of the wellness industry because they've been overlooked for so long by science and, medicine as well. So when you have no answers and you've been disregarded and misdiagnosed and just given management over long periods of time, eventually you lose faith as well. And so they're a big proportion of the wellness industry. So you see, we have a worldwide systems collapse. And what we've seen with 6,000 science studies, over 670 peer-reviewed publications, and we're not talking just on human health, but we have 4 clinical trials on human health, mental and emotional health problems, as well as over 100 blood parameters in randomized, controlled, and double-blinded placebo, clinical trials. So really legitimate clinical trials. And then you have, so many experiments we've done in agriculture, plants, trees, nuts, seeds, fruits, soil. We have, bacteria, viruses, fungi, right? We change mutations of bacteria. We'd be able to create new species. We've been able to create new species, things that only nature can do, we're able to do, right? When consciousness is evolved beyond the consciousness of nature, you can do things that nature can do, which is create new species, create new materials. We've been able to produce that scientifically, proving that this is real enlightenment that's happening. This is real something from the divine, something from a creator, somebody that created, sustained life. That same creator can change it. We've been able to change those structures of life itself.